So this is my first tell-all. So Addison was diagnosed with ADHD, and he's borderline for PTSD and some anxiety. But we never really saw huge evidence of that other than the hyperactivity. Like, that was pretty much what we saw. And then, like, inability to focus. And I mean, like, extreme inability to focus. So we decided that, medication would be helpful. So he was put on medication. It seemed like he was much better at focusing at school. And then, I always called him Positive Pete, because there's a silver lining in everything. One time, my nephew had a baseball game, and I don't remember the score, but it was something like, Addison's like, "Oh, did you guys win?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Oh, what was the score?" It's like 4-14. And Addison's like, "Oh, you almost won." But that right there explains Addie. Like, that is he just sees everything as silver lining. So, last school year, second semester, I get a call from his teacher that she just can't calm him down. And I'd seen kind of, like, the anxiety thing, like, occasionally, where he was a little worked up about something. But there wasn't really a trigger for this anxiety. He had bumped into somebody on the playground, and they weren't really hurt, but Addison just, like, couldn't be consoled, and he was just, like, extreme. Well, I thought that it was just kind of a mild thing, and I went up to the school, and sure enough, he's, like, inconsolable, and so I took him home. And we came home, and my dad actually gave him a blessing, and he felt better, and he got happier, and he just needed lots of hugs. So I hugged on him, and then we took him back to school, and he was fine. And then about a month before school got out, a similar thing happened. Again, extreme. I honestly didn't realize how extreme his behavior was, because by the time I got there, he'd already been going through an issue for a while, and so I was seeing the tail end of it. So his teacher explained, she's like, a lot of the kids have some anxiety about the new school year, and they're going to have a different teacher, different classmates, and yada, yada, yada. So maybe that's what was happening. Oh, okay. Then it didn't happen again. And then school got out, and summer was going along fine, and then one day Addison had, like, this extreme overreaction to something, and I thought to myself, I wonder if this is what was happening in the school, because I didn't realize it was this extreme. And he could not be consoled, and he just had to go to his room and until he was happy again, and we did that a few times, and then and I kind of attributed it to being out of school, and then his dad came home, and it happened once after Dad came, so I thought maybe it was because Dad's a truck driver, he's gone all the time, maybe it kind of triggered that anxiety. And then as the summer progressed, it seemed to be getting worse. So his hyperactivity also seemed to be kind of more intense, and so I said maybe we needed to increase his medication. So I talked to his pediatrician, and we increased his meds, but she felt like he needs to see a psychiatrist. Like, this is serious anxiety. And there was even thoughts of, I wouldn't necessarily say suicidal, like he wasn't wanting to kill himself, but he was definitely saying, like, I shouldn't be alive, nobody should like me, God should never have even created me. So I'm being pretty candid, because I'm sure there's somebody going through the same thing. I want you to know you're not alone, and maybe what I went through can help you. So we started the meds, and I started looking for a psychiatrist, and that's a whole nother story with our insurance and yada, yada, yada. And but in the meantime, he started having sleep issues as well, and then started back to school. Well, back to school got worse, and we decided, because he's not on a med that he has to be weaned off of, we decided we'd stop meds and see if that's what the problem was. But the issues continued, and maybe were even worse. And then had the pediatrician ordered a sleep study and had his like blood work done, and so everything was kind of inconclusive, but we got in early to see for the sleep study, and at this point he was having horrible behavior at school, like throwing things, hitting walls, kicking stuff, screaming. He could spend a whole day in the back of the classroom yelling like, "Why won't you look at me? I'm sorry. I wrote a note to you." And he'd have like a note on a whiteboard that said, "I'm sorry." And he's screaming at the whole class. And I just felt like they didn't really deal with his behavior very well. Like they didn't know what to do. And it was so extreme. And it wasn't anything that we saw at home. I mean, it was similar, but nothing to that extent. There was one time at home that he got kind of violent and he was really aggressive towards me, and I'd never seen that before, so it was disconcerting. His birthday came, which should be a happy day, and usually if the behavior really is about anxiety or mental issues, normally on a birthday it's enough of a high that it kind of cancels out that bad behavior. But it didn't at all. Like, he was almost more extreme that day. And he had a horrible breakdown on his birthday. His dad was here for his birthday, and he just was, like, not in a good place. Addison was. So, and Jimmy kind of talked him down, and then we were able to celebrate his birthday. But, sorry, I couldn't sleep. I had to get up and do this. That's all I could think about. So, we got a call that they could get him early for his sleep study because they couldn't do it until October, and this was like August when we first started talking about doing it. And October seemed like, years away, especially because every day or every other day he was having this outburst at school. And I kept going up to the school trying to calm him, and then we came up with a plan at school, and then we'd do that plan and it wouldn't work or it'd backfire even, and we were trying everything we could. So, and I was just grateful that I have a job where I make my own hours and I have freedom, and I could go when he needed me, when the school needed me. But I also didn't want the school I didn't want them to make those big decisions for my son. I didn't want them to get to decide what kind of kid he was going to be and what kind of treatment he was going to get. Like, I wanted to be more hands-on and be able to help him more. And I just kept telling James, I'm like, there's just too many variables. When we put him in school, there's just too many variables. It's like we can't control any one thing. We don't know what's really is the cause. So, anyway, we got a call that we could do the sleep study early. So I was like, absolutely, I'll drop everything, make sure that happens. So we did, and we went in and we did the sleep study. And then the next morning, we actually had an ENT appointment, and they actually sent the ENT some preliminary results, and they pretty much said there's nothing causing the sleep deprivation and the sleep disturbances. He was waking up all the time at night, and he just restless. And so at the ENT, he told, preliminary says no, there's no issues, but I'll still get the full results, and there could be something that they that didn't stand out that maybe we missed. So I started explaining all of the issues to him, and he was asking me all these questions, and he says, have you checked his iron? I don't know. And to me, like, at that point, I thought that just was like, one of the things he asked and one of the things he checks. Like, let's check his iron. I said, okay. And I thought maybe for the sleep, but I never knew that low iron caused lack of, or restless sleep. I only knew that it caused you to fall asleep during the day. I didn't know it's because your sleep was restless at night as well as you're tired. So anyway, so they decided to check his iron. Well, in the meantime, I decided to look that up. I'm like, I wonder why he's checking his iron, if there's anything else besides just the sleep thing. And sure enough, it can cause unexplained anxiety. Well, if you are a kid who already has anxiety, who's been diagnosed with anxiety, and you are low on iron, and that's causing unexplained anxiety, then guess what? It just causes exacerbated anxiety, and it had really come on pretty quickly, about 6 months before before he was diagnosed. He just all of a sudden kind of started becoming this really anxious and overreactive kid, and it happened kind of slowly, and so it made sense to me. I'm like, well, that sounds like, iron deficiency is probably not going to happen like that. It probably, increased over time, and so anyway, that was all before we found out if he was even low on iron. But then the doctor called and said, he's low on iron, let's put him on iron. And I said, okay. So we did, but I had been feeling really strongly that I should homeschool him. Well, I really had been feeling strongly about homeschooling both of them, but I wasn't ready to. But God had a different plan. So anyway, I pulled Addison out, started homeschooling him, and then a whole nother story of Etsy, which I'll tell some other time, and pulled her out as well. And we started homeschooling, and within a week, I saw a different kid. Like, I was like, this is not the Addison that's been freaking out at school. We had 0 meltdowns, and he had been working towards earning a new backpack, but he had to have 7 full days with no meltdowns. They happened. Easy, quick, no problem. Earn the backpack. So I was like, interesting. Anyway, then a couple of weeks go by. I was having meltdowns. Kind of like a little bit of issues, though. Like, kind of close to meltdowns, but I'm mom. I know when something's, bothering him. I could kind of isolate him and keep him from melting down. But then by week 3, I noticed I wasn't noticing any issues. I wasn't like, oh, I need to, sorry, I have an itch. I wasn't having to isolate or try to help him overcome anything. So I was like, And so, anyway, he started doing really well. We weren't having any issues. Then we went to Texas, and I had ordered some, because he's doing a liquid iron, and it's over the counter, but you have to get it from a pharmacist, so it's a behind the counter, over the counter drug, and it's really hard to find. And so I had ordered several bottles of it from Walmart. It's the only place I'd actually found it, their pharmacy. And then I forgot to go pick them up before we left. But we had a full bottle, so I thought we probably would make it, but I wasn't sure. And anyway, day before we left, we started running low, so I was like, oh, he's got 2 more doses. So we checked several pharmacies in the area, couldn't find it. So I was like, well, he'll just go one day without it and it'll be fine. So we got home, so he missed like, a half a day while we were there, and then the day we traveled, and then the day we got back. So it's almost 3 days. And so then it was evening by the time I got the stuff. So he really went 3 full days without it, and I could tell. He was starting to overreact, and it was like night and day. I'm like, wow. By day 3, without the iron, this was the kid that we had seen several weeks before. Just the overreaction, the anxiety at school, and it was like a switch had been flipped as soon as the iron had been out of his system for 3 days. So, anyway, I tell you this because maybe there's somebody out there who is having similar issues. Maybe your child is suffering and it's just iron. There's a lot of signs of low iron: the cold extremities, whiteness when you pull your eyelids down, that area is white, pale complexion, no color in their cheeks, drowsiness, restless sleep, anxiety. So if you're a mom who's dealing with some of those things, maybe it would be worth exploring. Check your kid's iron, because it's been a game changer for us, and we have our positive feedback, and nothing really phases him again, and doesn't get too upset about anything, which is the kid we've always been used to. It's interesting because, we always felt like maybe he didn't have as much of the effects of the emotional scarring like Etsy does. But then when this started happening, then I was like, maybe it just was really buried deep. And now with iron, he's fine. So I'm thinking maybe not. Maybe he really doesn't have the same emotional scarring. And which would make me happy for him, sad for Etsy, happy for Addison. But knowing that there are so many things out there that could cause, issues, and if you don't know and your kid's not getting treated, like, he could be suffering at school. There was a kid at our school that they have a room that's got 2 doors on it, and when he starts throwing his fits, they put him in that room and they hold the doors shut and he throws a fit. I don't know about you, but as an adult, if somebody put me in a room and pushed, they're holding the door shut, I think I'd get worse because I would be extremely aggravated and maybe terrified. So when I started seeing that and they didn't know what to do with Addison, it really gave me a lot of pause for thought about what was best for my kid, and that was best for me to pull him out because schools don't necessarily have the resources, and obviously they didn't know Zion was loved. Ta-da! But that couldn't fix his behavior until we knew. So anyway, we are homeschooling now, and it's been a challenge in a million other ways, but the anxiety is gone, the overreaction, meltdowns is all we call them, a meltdown. And for some reason I had to get that off my chest tonight because I couldn't sleep till I told you it. So anyway, hope it helps somebody. If you have questions or want some advice, just from my own experience, not because I'm an expert in any way, please reach out to me. And I love you. So that's my tell-all. I told you all I had to tell about that. Good night.